Hold
This
on.
is your production system, and these are all of the timesheet categories that are set up. And obviously, that's the main sort of most important thing initially is to get all the timesheet categories correct.
Yeah. Really quick, I do want to say something. And I think it'll help me, I know it, but I think it might help other people also, and maybe it already exists. Can we make I don't know how to say it, a flow chart, I guess, that you can put together? Because I kept getting confused on versus a timesheet category defines a staff, I guess the template, the timesheet template, or like what's the I don't even know how to say it, but how everything links together. Like if you go to the admin and
Mm-hmm.
then what, let me go configuration. I think this is where I need to be. Yeah, so a timesheet category versus a labor category versus setting up for the templates, because I kept thinking that I was doing it and I was going back in and it kept showing me that I didn't set it up. And so like then I had to start putting like or spelling things in capitals or in lowercase so that I can see where that links to another one, because like on some of them I had biologist and then the biologist wouldn't show up when I went to that. I guess it was a type, labor type rather than a labor category. And then the timesheets, they have different names also, that if I named it biologist, it was showing up and sometimes it wouldn't show up. So I was getting kind of confused there.
Yep, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I will take your advice. And this weekend, I'll put together a map of how all these things tie together. One main
Okay.
thing to remember is that labor categories and labor rate types, that only comes into the invoicing module and the contract reporting module.
Okay.
So these don't show up on your time card anywhere.
That's probably one of my problems. I think I started from the top and I tried to do everything all the way down and getting confused. So it
Yep,
didn't work.
totally makes sense. So yeah, we need to separate this out and add a little more documentation as to how these things contribute to creating invoices.
Okay.
As far as the timesheet goes, you start with the categories. That's like the universe of everything that people can record time against.
Okay.
And then because not everybody uses all of the categories all the time, you group
Mhm.
those into templates.
Okay.
So, in categories, we've got, what is this, about 18 or 20 different categories of time entry. And then under the templates, you have 4 different templates set up, and each one of them doesn't have all 20 of the categories. So administration, for example's only got 4,
Okay.
and biologist has, a lot of them.
Okay.
And then every time I create a new timesheet, my user account says which template do I use to create my default rows in my timesheet. So that's what shows up when I go hit timesheet.
Okay. And that's based on the role you are assigned in on the other admin one that says roles, right?
It's
So
actually
that's,
more specific per user. So each user has a setting that says which timesheet template are they going to use. So this is on my user account that says I'm going to use the biologist template.
okay. So show me where that's on the user.
Yep.
So if I go to the user and if I set up a user and I go to, okay, so my user and I set it up as, where do I go? On roles of a user
No,
or edit?
click on edit. Sorry, I'm
Edit.
going a little too fast here. Click on edit on the user record.
And then what timesheet I use, okay, a biologist timesheet. Got it.
Yep, that's for the template. The timesheet type, um, we actually are not using that right now. There are some counties that have 2 different kinds of employee contracts, um,
Oh,
like union and non-union employees, and they have to print out a different looking timesheet.
oh,
That's what this
all right.
timesheet
Well, then I didn't
type,
know that.
Yep,
I
this
was
is
trying to make that work. I mean, and you can kind of see in the roles how I had to put like role in parentheses because I was losing where that was connecting to. So I started putting like labels on things because I was really confused. So, okay, got it. Makes sense now.
yep. Okay, so you don't need to worry, I don't think, about the timesheet type, just the template. The template is, it's a template. It means every time I create a new timesheet, it's going to look at this template and it's going to include all of the rows that are typical to a biologist template.
Okay.
So if it helps, you might think about naming your timesheet templates. If I go back to configuration and I look at the timesheet templates, you might want to name these something, a little different, like administration timesheet, biologist timesheet.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like where I was getting confused because I didn't know, it kept saying biologist in all these different areas and I didn't know what it was connecting to.
Yep.
Okay. So I will do that.
Okay, and then just back to the user admin on the roles. If I click on the roles here, these roles just pertain to, what permissions I have in the system. And that's why, you see a lot of the same terminology, clerical, biologist, administrator. That terminology does tend to overlap between the roles and the timesheet templates.
Okay.
And then just one last thing to point out on the timesheet templates. Every time I create a timesheet, so whenever I go look at my timesheet for a given payroll period, it's creating that timesheet. Even if I don't type any time in on it, it's actually creating that timesheet for that payroll period.
Okay.
So now that I've looked at this one, if you were to go make changes to that biologist template, I won't see those changes until I go to a new payroll period.
Okay.
So we're actually planning on fixing that so that I can hit a button to refresh my timesheet categories.
Mm.
And what that'll do is it'll reload that timesheet using the categories and the order that they're presented in the template. And then if I've already entered time on some things that aren't in my template, it'll go ahead and add those rows as well.
Okay.
That'll make it easier. Down the road, after we get through this initial setup phase, it's not very frequent, I think, that you'll go and modify those templates or, modify the category setup.
I was kind of putting as much as I could in there, not knowing what I was going to need. And I think as we start using it more and more, we'll be able to, in 6 months or so, come back and say, okay, let's get rid of this, this, and this. Let's update this a little bit.
Yep. Well, another thing that will help is, or just one last thing I wanted to mention on the timesheet templates is, about the sort order thing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can sort this in a particular order.
Oh. Like alphabetical?
Well, I've got these up and down arrows, so I can move these categories up and down.
Oh, I see. I see what it's doing. Okay.
So if I wanted holiday to be at the top, I could just, click that up to the top.
Ah, no, I didn't realize that's what those buttons were for. Okay.
Yep. That way, when you go to a timesheet, again, when we add that refresh from template button, it'll resort them in the order that the template is sorted in, because, it doesn't make sense necessarily to just have weights and measures activity and then NOI review. It's like, kind of a bizarre order.
Okay.
So that's something you probably want to relook at on your timesheet templates, is just to get the rows sorted so that, like all of your Kramer related stuff, like RMP non-ag and RMP ag, are all sorted together.
Yeah.
All your non-work time, sick time, comp time, et cetera, are all grouped together.
Okay. I'm going to add that to my action items.
Okay.